The motion be agreed to. I call the Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Can I commend the Minister for his words in the third reading of the Members of Parliament Remuneration and Services Bill, and also acknowledge the members of the Government Administration Select Committee who have worked pretty hard on this bill. We've had it for, I think, 2 extensions we asked for in order to get agreement of all members of the Select Committee. There's 3 parties on the Government Administration Select Committee. There's National Labour and the Greens, and all parties agreed completely in the end. And actually, during the process, we had quite a lot of differing opinions, even within members of their own party, because some of these issues are not as black and white or as straightforward as some matters are. We also had pretty impressive contributions to our deliberation, including from the former Speaker of the House, the Right Honourable Sir Lockwood Smith, now a resident in London, who made a very considered and robust contribution to the thinking of the committee, and I want to acknowledge his contribution, as well as the Clerk of the House and others who also made very considered contributions. The primary driver of this legislation was to modernise the regime under which members of Parliament remuneration and services are provided, address what are some clear anomalies or gaps in the system, but also to improve the transparency. And I think without doubt, Mr Speaker, that was an issue on which all members of the Select Committee that I'm privileged to chair reached agreement immediately. We understand from our own constituents that when public money is used, when taxpayers' money is funding the operation of Parliament, that there has to be the highest level of transparency in the use of that money. And I'm very pleased that this legislation has progressed that transparency even further than the original proposals. It certainly has been the case in the last, I suppose, 10 or 15 years particularly, that there has been more transparency in the use of public money. I don't know if the public is yet at a time when they can say, yes, this feels right, we understand what the money's used for, but I certainly hope that after the passing of this legislation, that transparency will increase the public confidence in the operation of Parliament, because that's pretty important. The next round of decisions that we considered were who made determinations about remuneration and support services that members of Parliament and their parliamentary staff and out-of-parliamentary staff may receive, whether those decisions, that determination should be made by the Speaker of the House or whether the determination should be made by the Remuneration Authority. And we changed, by unanimous agreement of the Select Committee, one provision, which was in regard to the travel for members of Parliament. We agreed that that would remain as the responsibility of the Speaker, and this is for a very simple reason. It's because we view the travel that members of Parliament have as a fundamental part of the work of a Member of Parliament. For those of us who live, thankfully, for those of us who live outside Wellington, and indeed outside this island, we know that it's our responsibility to come to Parliament every week. And that's part of the travel that we undertake as part of our job. So it was our view that the work-related and, in fact, requirement of a Member of Parliament to be able to travel to perform their duties, not just in travelling from home to Parliament, but also in travelling from home or Parliament to other duties, either as a minister, as a spokesperson, as a National Party backbencher, or as an opposition spokesperson, are also really critical to fulfilling your job as a Member of Parliament, but also to ensuring that we have a healthy democracy. We cannot have a democracy that flourishes in Wellington and ignores the rest of the country. So it was our view that the proper place in which that determination should be made was with the Speaker. We did not, however, feel the same in regard to the travel that family members are able to access. We agree that it's a very important supporting part of being a Member of Parliament to have family members able to travel to support at various occasions, but we did not agree that it was fundamental to your job, and therefore we agreed that the determination of travel for family members should properly go to the Remuneration Authority. Thus, the same with support services. We believe that that is, again, a core role of fulfilling your duties as a Member of Parliament and should therefore be a determination of the Speaker. I am really delighted that this bill clarifies that the funding of support services for any Member of Parliament is the responsibility of Parliament and not the responsibility of the individual party from which the member who needs those support services belongs. We've had instances over the last, well, perhaps since Invercargill was held by a Labour Member of Parliament, actually, so it goes back quite a long way. We've had instances where Members of Parliament have a physical or sensory impairment and may require different support services in order that they perform their full function as a Member of Parliament compared to other members. And there has been a debate in recent times about whether those support services for a member with a physical or sensory impairment should be funded by the party that that member belongs to, or whether it's the responsibility of Parliament. We've kicked that out the door and said, without doubt, this is a responsibility of Parliament. I hope that this gives a really clear message to all disabled New Zealanders that they would be welcome in this Parliament as contributing members, regardless of what party that they were elected to represent, and that Parliament would consider it our responsibility to provide proper support services so that they are able to perform their duty. Mr. Speaker, a couple of other points that I want to just draw to the attention of the House. I mentioned right at the beginning our very quick and unanimous agreement to the point in recognising how the public feel about their taxpayer money being used for these purposes to fund the operation of Parliament, including Members of Parliament's salary and support services, but also the allowances that former Members of Parliament get, and that's often an issue of contention. It was our view that this was a very important area in terms of improving transparency of the use of those funds. So former Members of Parliament travel will now become part of the public record. And again, I do hope that members of the public see that as a good thing. It is their money, not our money, and how it is used should be a matter of public record so that people can then make their contribution known in a debate about whether that's a fair use or a good use. I'm sure that many people in our constituencies wonder what we do when we come to Parliament. Quite often, it is indeed, with the thousands and thousands of people, Mr. Speaker, who will be watching this debate on the television, they'll look around the room and they'll see many seats that don't have a member sitting in them, and they'll wonder whether the person's knocked off early, gone home, or whether they've gone down Lambton Quay shopping. What are they doing? They're not sitting in the House. Well, we know, as Members of Parliament, that the commitments outside the chamber are real. We have other meetings that we all attend, and they're meetings that are important to us for various reasons. But for a Member of Parliament to just go AWOL and not turn up at all is not acceptable to any of us, so we have increased the penalties that those AWOL members will have to contribute. We've linked it directly to their salary. So if a minister goes AWOL, they won't be penalised on the basis of their salary being a backbenchers. They'll be penalised as a percentage of the ministerial salary. That should give a very clear message that when Members of Parliament are elected to be representatives, that they should turn up and do their job. And the same applies for Members of Parliament who are suspended for bad behaviour. Fortunately, we don't get that very often. I did think during question time today that there might be a bit of a clear-out, but there wasn't. In the end, the Speaker dropped his focus on removing some members, but if a member is suspended from the House, then we think there should be a financial penalty attached to that, and that's included in provisions here. That clause in the bill came directly from a recommendation of the Standing Orders Committee. So I think that the work that we've done has been pretty rigorous. It wasn't always black and white. There were some differences in consideration, but I think we got quality submissions. I think that we all worked really hard to make sure that the public funds that are used to support our democracy in New Zealand has a fair process, but also a transparent process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call the honourable member Chris Ockenville.